What is up, and welcome into the DFS Pawn Shop. My name is Eric. You can catch me on those Twitter streets at FantasyNav, and riding shotgun with me, the better half of the Pawn Shop is, as always, is my guy, Mr. Mike Holland. Mike, how's it going this Saturday night?
Well, you tell me, man. You're the one making all the money today, so it's going good. There's no UT football, so I'm not depressed on a Saturday night. But yeah, just looking forward to the NFL slate tomorrow, which will kick off here in just a little bit.
Yeah, we're looking at a pretty exciting slate from my point of view, right? So we're all the way in week 13 somehow. We're back up to 11 games again. And for me, like, it really feels like there's enough value on this slate to where we can kind of do whatever we want, right? So with that, that's kind of my cliff notes on week 13. I guess overall, like, is that sort of the same mindset that you have, or do you maybe have like a more kind of narrow strategy for this week?
My strategy for the week is to try to get through this week unscathed. I don't like a lot of these people who are looking at some of these matchups, and I'm looking to pivot from these matchups. A lot of people are on the Oakland Washington matchup. I don't care for it much. There's just some weird matchups out there that I think this is kind of a week to find something in the middle, find something that goes over at the bottom, and you can really gain leverage and hopefully make some money. So I'm going to be playing a little bit more contrarian than what I would normally do. Most of the ownership's going to go to, but there's enough value to kind of get creative and different this week. So I'm just going to kind of mix it and match it and be a little more contrarian than what I normally throw out there. So that's just kind of my strategy for the week.
Nice. Yeah, I love it. And I think about it in kind of a similar light, right? Like, there aren't those couple of all-in games on the board. So definitely gives us a lot of room to find the angles and the lanes that we want to get into. And here I am on a Saturday night going out of order. I should have opened us up by thanking everyone for coming and hanging out with us here on the Pawn Shop. If you are a return listener, we appreciate you kicking it with us on another Saturday night. If you are brand new to the Pawn Shop, I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. Basically, like any good trip to a pawn shop, we go in, we walk all the way to the back, and we look at the premium items that are in the showcase. We spend a little bit of time cruising through the sales rack, and then, as always, got to pick through that bargain bin. And that means for you, we're going game by game, finding where you should be looking to spend your money, spend your efforts in week 13. And we will kick it off with that showcase. These are the premium games. These are where you're going to be spending the majority of your money. This right here is the good shit. And the very first game that we have queued up in the showcase, yet again, features the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are heading to Atlanta, face off against the Falcons. This is a 1:00 game. Highest game total on the board, sitting at 50.5. Has come down a little bit. It opened at 52 even. The Buccaneers are currently a 10.5-point favorite. Actually, one of the biggest favorites on the board. That gives them a 30.5 implied total, and the Falcons down at an even 20. So fairly lopsided game to kick us off here, Mike. How does that maybe kind of change or implement your strategy in terms of looking at this game in particular?
Give me the Bucks D and all in the Bucks side. I mean, Falcons don't look great. The Bucks D is only 3,500 on DraftKings, so looking to get that to be one of my main defenses this week. So that's definitely something I'm looking for. I do got to give a shout out to Leonard Fournette. I think we said if he was on 1 out of 100 lineups that he would smash, and we didn't recommend them last week, and he come out. That's what you get. You get the smash play we don't like. But for this matchup, 7,300. I guess. I mean, he's getting the bulk of the the work here. So it's kind of one of those things that 17 carries, 8 targets. I think that's the thing with him this year. I gotta get it out of my mind that they're just not going to use him in the passing game, because they are using him in the passing game. I mean, he's had 5 targets or more in the last 4 games. And for the last 4 or 5 years. So I'll have a little bit of exposure to him, and that price tag is a little bit much for me, especially coming off of a ridiculous outing last game. So Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they're priced to play this week. 6,700 for Evans, 6,600 for Godwin. You have Antonio Brown out. You've got Gronk at 5,300, who's kind of in an interesting spot. I guess he'll be a little popular. It's kind of hard to gauge the tight end position that's going to kind of really open up, flexibility for your roster. But I think he's in an interesting spot. I don't like much on the Falcons side. So it's kind of a weird deal here. I don't know if I want to really run this back. We got your boy Cordero Patterson at 7K. That's a bit much for me. And I don't like a lot. So it's kind of tough to run this game back. I think you just have to hope the Bucs just get out ahead and pile up all their fantasy points in the first 3 quarters of this game, because I'm not expecting a close one.
If that's the case, like, are you talking about like a Brady stack here with a couple of pieces to go with them, since you're going to kind of punt on the run back?
Yeah, I'm looking at I'm definitely looking at Brady with I don't mind him with both Godwin and Evans. I don't know how popular that's going to be, and honestly, of course, we always talk about it. It seems like it's the lead every time, because I think it's the highest total we always talk about as the quarterback runs together, especially with how much work Fournette's getting game. If he catches screen or gets one of the cheap passing touchdowns, and Brady throws for 3 touchdowns, and you get the other touchdown from Godwin or Evans, you have a completely unique lineup. So just something I'm going to throw out there in a few of my lineups, see if I can get different and jump up the leaderboard.
Yeah. For me, I think the player to really highlight here is the name that you mentioned a moment ago, and that's Rob Gronkowski, right? While he's been available, he's that dude for this offense, right? He's got about 75% snap share. He runs about 27 routes a game, and in the red zone, he gets 1 out of every 5 targets. So we were talking about it a little bit on our swing through on Rum Boys After Dark last night. Shout out. But this Buccaneers offense is absolutely loaded, and with AB pulling a McLovin, all of that underneath work, all of that high percentage work is going to go to Gronk. So I think that Gronk is maybe my favorite play out of this game. Do you think that you're going to be like a good deal overweight on the field with Gronk? Are you riding with me, or do you think you're just going to have a few spots here and there?
Yeah, most likely a few spots, and most likely I'd probably be playing him as a one-off from this game. Most of my stacks are going to come with the receiver, and then I'll have some stacks with Fournette and a receiver, just to be different. What are your thoughts on like stacking? It's pretty terrifying for me, at least. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you let off the top saying that you're looking to go contrarian, right? So I think that will be a unique build overall. I'm generally not a big fan of it, but I'm also, I mean, I'm playing in fairly large field tournaments, right? So like, it feels weird, feels naked to trot out a stack without any run back, right? And I guess, on that point, like, the guy that you want to look at for my money is Cordell Patterson. I don't think that makes him a good play. I think it just means that he's like the best of the options in Atlanta. This Tampa Bay run defense is stout, right? But they've also been able to be gashed by running backs receiving the ball. I guess that's technically more of Patterson's specialty. So, I haven't really decided if I would just go completely one-sided on this game. If I do run it back, it'll probably be Patterson. And I mean, looking at him, like with where he's priced, he's all the way up at $7K. Literally
no one's
nobody is going to
that.
be on this player. Like maybe sub 1% owned, which would be kind of exciting to pop open a Millie Maker lineup and see a dude that's averaging like 28 points almost sitting at 1% ownership. So those are kind of my thoughts on the Atlanta run back. I don't know if that means any of this is a good idea.
Come on, you want to add Sharp in there with your 3x2,
Yeah, exactly.
What a time, man. What are your thoughts on Tyler Johnson?
I mean, he's out of the player pool for me, right? Like I think Tampa Bay wins this one comfortably. They have literally 5 guys that are going to catch passes before him, right? When you count Fournette, when you count Gronkowski, when you count Scooter Miller being back out there with his busted ass foot, like there are a bunch of guys that are going to catch balls before Tyler Johnson.
That's my guy.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Tom Brady might have to throw like 28, 30 times in this game to salt it away. So he's a pass for me. I mean, are you going that deep on the Tampa Bay side?
Nah, I'm just going to keep it simple. Really just hoping that this thing gets out of hand early. And yeah, I don't want any of the other side. So, or if I'm not playing any, I might play the Fournette Buccaneers stack. I think that'll be defense stack. That'll probably be pretty popular. So I don't know if I'm going to have too much of that, but I think I'm just going to get unique on the offensive side for Tampa Bay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love the Gronk play. The state of tight end is really tricky to figure out, but I do think he'll be under-owned, and we'll explain why as we carry on through the slate. And with that, we will move to our next game here in the showcase. We are staying in the 1 o'clock block, the rare back-to-back 1 o'clock game here in the showcase. We have the Los Angeles Chargers heading east for the vaunted 1 o'clock game against the Cincinnati Bengals. This one is a 50-point implied total, and this one has been skyrocketing. It opened at 46.5. This one is actually one of the instances that flipped. We saw the Chargers open as 2.5-point favorites. It has now moved a full 5.5 points to where the Bengals sit as the standard 3-point home favorite. That gives them an implied total of 26.5, and the Chargers at 23.5. So, Mike, this is a game kind of on the macro, the real world football level that has pretty big playoff implications, right? These are two teams that are very much so in need of a win to maintain their position on the graphic for the postseason. I'm actually a big fan of this game in particular. What are your thoughts of it?
Well, I mean, I think everyone's going to run to Joe Mixon, right? I mean, he's pretty much going to be a core play for a lot of lineups. So that makes me want to go the other route and play some Joe Burrow along with Chase. My boy Tyler Boyd's in there. Just being unique because I think, yeah, I mean, obviously the Chargers run defense is poor. We've seen what Mixon's done. I mean, hell, Joe Burrow's basically much. Finally hit that Higgins game last game, and I couldn't turn it into anything substantial. So I missed the boat on that. But yeah, I mean, overall, I just feel like Mixon's kind of a core play this week. I'm going to have some. I'm not completely fading him. But I'm using him as more of a one-off piece. And on my stacks, I'm looking to go Eckler and using Joe Burrow and the receiver. That's the way I'm going to try to attack this thing.
Man, so I'm over here feeling inspired. Our guy Carl is in the chat feeling inspired. Let's go. I don't know if that's just because you're pumped to be here in the pawn shop, Carl. We're super excited to have you here. Or if you're looking to talk about this game. And for me, the reason why I love this game is this is the leverage spot on the slate. Joe Mixon is going to be maybe not the most widely owned running back, just given some of the value plays on the board, but easily the highest owned player in this game, along with the high volume options that we see in Keenan Allen, in Austin Eckler. T. Higgins, like you mentioned, is going to draw a ton of ownership. He's coming off that huge game, and he's still way underpriced. He's like $5,700, $5,800. Like, he's going to be crazy chalky, and there's a lot of things to like and a lot of reasons to try to get to this game. And everyone is going to be on Mixon and Keenan Allen. And for me, if you look at the other side of the board, you can get Jamar Chase, who by himself is going to be an awesome leverage play. He's probably going to be around 5 or 6% owned. But you can also get the run back with Mike Williams, who's going to be the underowned piece on the Chargers side. And now you have this game in your hand. See, Mike gets it.
Give me that 3x2, man. Give me Burrow. Give me Chase.
2.
Give me Uzoma. Give me Mike Williams, and give me Austin Eckler. I'll give it all. It probably won't work out. I think Mixon's obviously a cash game lock. Allen, I get it. I mean, it's a PPR machine. If he could find the end zone more, I mean, he would pay this price tag off easily. But we can't ever guarantee the touchdown here. We can guarantee the the targets and the receptions and some decent yardage here. But yeah, I mean, if you're trying to take down a tournament, I don't know if he's a large field tournament. I don't know if he's the best play here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how he could be, right? Like, if you're talking about a cash game, you're talking about someone who's going to help you get over the pay line. He's a great candidate, right? But if you're trying to move up into those double and single digit finishes, it's not going to be with a Joe Mixon that is going to float around. I don't know. I don't know where you have him, Mike. I've got him around like 18 to 20% ownership.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you're not going to win unless you get crazy different elsewhere in your builds. And there just aren't a ton of spots that I really want to look to outside of this game to get different. So one of the things that I wanted to get your opinion on, there's been kind of mixed reporting. Sounded like this might be a weather game. Now it looks like it's going to be cold and clear. Potentially, kind of into the afternoon, there could be some scattered showers. I guess now that we are firmly into December, how does weather impact your point of view on whether or not to look at someone on the DFS side?
Yeah, for me, it does matter. I think obviously wind is a huge factor. But overall, it's, the snow, whatever. I think that's more for betting purposes. I usually like to try to chase the unders on, as you get closer to the game time. So, I'm a little more excited about this game than I was a couple of days ago. And now it's like, hey, might get some good passing opportunities here. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm attacking this one. The Chargers need this one, so I wouldn't be surprised if they came out and won. But I'm expecting the Bengals to just come out, and I would take the 3 points. That's just how I'm feeling about the Bengals right now. They just have too many weapons. Their defense has been playing okay. So
yeah. So one more thing before we move on, I wanted to get your thoughts. You mentioned Joe Burrow in the couple of examples that you brought up. You look over at Justin Herbert sitting at $6,700. He's $400 more expensive. I still think he's generally too cheap. I guess maybe walk us through how you make that decision between two players that are comparably priced and kind of reasonably similar projections or expectations. Are you just generally going towards the cost savings, or how do you kind of ultimately land on which player you fire up?
Yeah, I think, Herbert's going to be a little more popular. Obviously, if you look at, the last, 4 starts. He's got a 38-point output there against Pitt. Philadelphia at 34, and then he has a dud at Minnesota game, and then he had an okay game, especially for the price tag. 24 piece, more than an okay game. But yeah, it's just more. I just like the Bengals side of this. I'm not going to and Mixon. But overall, in this particular game, I'm just going to go more heavy on the Bengals passing attack and Eckler than I am the Herbert stacks, with Mixon. So it's just more of a leverage type situation for me.
Makes sense. Yeah. And I should say, it sounds like we've got some new listeners in here. Carl came in and clarified that he's new to the pawn shop. So we're excited to have you run along with us on Saturday night. And for those of you or the rest of you that are out there listening for the first time, we generally look at things from the GPP point of view, right? So leverage is always going to take a priority relative to a couple dollars of savings on price tag. So keep that in mind, and we will keep trucking along to our third and actually last stop here in the showcase. We are moving over to the 4:05 window. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars heading to Los Angeles to face off against the Ram. Again, 4:05 time, kickoff time. We are looking at a 47.5 point total. This one has remained flat since it opened. And we are looking at another huge favorite. We've got LA opening as 9.5 point favorites that has walked all the way up to 13 points. That leaves them tied with the highest implied total on the board at 30.25, and the Jaguars all the way down at 17.25. So like I teed up there, another one-sided affair, at least based on how the guys in the desert are making sense of it. So how does that impact which players you're looking at for this game, Mike?
Yeah, I think obviously the trend here is that this isn't going to be a matchup here, but you can't be surprised in the NFL. Who knows what could happen. Having said that, Stafford Cup stacks pretty much going to be unowned, I would think. 16-3, might throw a few at it there. I guess the injury news with Henderson is something to pay attention to. We got your boy Sony Michel just ready at 4,300 to be fired up and destroy everything that we want to do tomorrow at getting closer to lock. So not the most exciting game. Trevor Lawrence, it's like 5,100. He's just getting to that point where it's like game piece. I don't think this is the spot to do it, but it's very contrarian. So I might throw one at it. Chenault's down to 4,400. Marvin Jones is down to 4,700. I mean, they're all priced down because of the Rams defense, because Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. So in a large field setting, the Millie Maker, I don't mind Trevor Lawrence and a Marvin Jones stack, especially with a Henderson or if it's Sony Michel on the other side. That frees up almost any and everything that you could grab Mixon and Eckler, grab pretty much any receiver you want. If you couple them with our favorite tight end that we'll talk about later tonight.
We're going to talk about him right now, and his last name is Manhurts. The good thing about this game is that we, unfortunately for him, no longer have to figure out what to do with Dan Arnold as he heads to the IR. But I guess maybe a bit more of a deeper dart throw. You mentioned the Millie Maker context. Is there anybody in the world who doesn't have the last name Toman who's going to fire up Laquan Treadwell tomorrow?
There's absolutely no one in this world that's doing that. But I don't
Not
mind
even the Tomans?
Nah, actually they might. Actually, they probably burned that jersey a long time ago. With Treadwell, it's like, yeah, it's a dart, yes. I don't know. The more I think about this, on the negative side, so they're going to be a comeback here. They're going to be pass heavy. If you can just get, a couple of Trevor Lawrence touchdowns and the yardage bonus, I mean, 5,100, that price tag is, man, that's mighty fine. You could easily 4X that, and people are not going to go there because it's the Rams defense. But you kind of know he's going to have to put it all on the line to, to kind of make this thing a closer game. So, or at least he might get some cheap touchdowns at the end of the game. So they're trying to develop the kid. I think.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you want to get really weird, like don't look now. Laquan Treadwell is on the field all the time. He's running as their number 2 there in 2 wide receiver groups. He's coming off back-to-back weeks, 72 and 86% of snaps. He was their leading target getter. He was their leading receiver last week. So I don't think that you should go out and find a reason to play Treadwell. But if you're already jumping into the Trevor Lawrence waters, maybe an interesting stack with him. What I think is interesting about this game overall is really just how ownership is going to settle in, right? Like Cooper Kupp got a discount. He's down to $9K, which is a weird thing to say out loud. It's still the most expensive wide receiver here on the board. Matt Stafford comes in at $7,300, which is the second or third most, depending on what happens with Kyler. So I definitely think that stack is going to be underplayed, but I also think in general, Cooper Kupp's probably going to be underplayed, right? Like he'll be on the optimal lineup, like, I don't know, 25 or 30% of the time, and he might land at like 10 or 12% ownership. So are you only looking at Kupp if you're stacking this game, or do you think that there's a place for him if you're just looking for a one-off piece?
Well, come on now, man. You know my guy Van Jefferson right there, 5,300. Oh man, just been smashing the Van Jefferson button pretty much all year. But yeah, I think this game expecting here and take care of business, and they probably will. But in case you get that 10% chance that that the Jacksonville Jaguars either run out to a somehow 14-0 lead or 10-0 lead, and you rack up some of these fantasy points. And I think there's some unique ways for the Jacksonville side, which is so dirt cheap, to be interesting. I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but in large field, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. As we carry on here, we got our guy Joe jumping in, saying what's up. Joe, we haven't heard from you in the chat in a couple of weeks, so we're glad that you're back in here with us and making these keys work. He's actually got a question about this game. He wants to know about the Rams defense or the Dolphins defense.
Man, I never spend 4K on the defense, and they're right at 4K. So DraftKings knew exactly what they were doing. I only spent 4K when it was, in that scenario.
And oddly enough, we've still yet to confirm whether or not Davis Mills is in fact Mike Glennon in disguise. So those Miami Dolphins are going to be facing off against the long-necked Mike Glennon. So I'm with you right there. Like, especially on this slate, I want those couple hundred or maybe even $1,000 to go spend elsewhere. I guess kind of walking us back a little bit, you mentioned Van Jefferson. I don't mind it, though. I think Van Jefferson is probably going to be one of the more popular guys out there, right? He's sitting all the way down at $5,300. His involvement in this offense is insane, right? Over the last 5 games, 7 targets, 6 targets, 7, 9. So he's very much so a focal point of this offense. I'd say that he's actually running as the 2 more so than Odell Beckham. And given that Beckham got a price increase, that Cooper Kupp is crazy expensive, I think Van Jefferson's actually probably going to be the chalkiest of the wide receiver room in the Rams. Do you have kind of a different read on it, or are you just sort of eating the chalk because he brings so much value?
I don't know. I think a lot of casual, DFS players will, that have been playing this year will know that Van was, 3,600, 3,800 for so long that now he's 5,300. It's kind of like, I don't know if I want him at this price tag. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. He's an interesting play. I don't think he's going to be that popular, honestly.
Really? Well, one to flag and watch. I think people want to get into this game a little bit, and just looking at kind of a points per dollar standpoint, he's the one that kind of pops on the models and optimizers the most. So I tend to think he's going to be a little bit more popular, but we'll certainly see how that shakes out over the course of the day.
But like his ceiling for this price tag, 25, 20, like.
I mean, I would say that last week was probably a ceiling game, right? 3 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown. That was 18 or so points. You know, he falls forward and gets over the bonus, and he's sitting at 21. So right around there, 18 to 21, I'd say is about a ceiling.
Yeah, 5,300. I mean, it seems like more of a cash play. I mean, that's almost 4x. So I guess I don't know. That's it's Van Jefferson after all. That's my guy, but he's only my guy usually when he's sub 5K. It's starting to creep up to that point where I might pass on him.
Makes sense. Anyone else you want to touch on in this Rams game?
What are you doing with Sony Michel if Henderson's out?
I'm probably not going to have any Sony Michel. There are value spots in the early windows that I'm going to be getting to where I'm not depending on Sony Michel being available and firing up in this game.
The hammer.
Yeah, the 4K hammer who's going to be 35% owned if he's starting. Also, it looks like Henderson got in a practice on Friday, so usually that's a decent indicator that he's probably trending towards playing.
Yeah, but I'm saying if the early value in the early windows, both players are going to be locked in. What if the news comes out for Henderson? It could be an interesting spot. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, it'll probably be one of those looks where it's kind of depending on how the early games are shaking out for me, right? If I'm doing well and I just need to get some cheap points and it gets me up to someone else in the 4:00 window, might take a look at it. But probably the best way to put this, I'm not going to be looking at the 1:00 lock with Henderson in any lineups.
No, for sure.
Awesome. Well, we will carry on, and that's actually the end of our showcase games. So that means we are moving on to the sales rack. Now, the sales rack doesn't really get its due as much as it should, right? There's obviously some lower quality items on there, things that have been sitting on the shelf for a bit, but always worth spending some time and spinning through there, because if you put in that time, you can usually find something that you're pretty happy with. And so the first game that we have here in the sales rack, we are staying in the afternoon window where we have the Washington football team heading to Vegas to square off against the Raiders. This one's sitting at a 48-point total. It's up half a point from opening at 47.5. We currently have the Raiders sitting at 1.5-point favorites. It's actually down a point. So essentially a pick 'em. Right now we've got Las Vegas carrying a 24.75 implied total, and the Washington football team at 23.25. So staying here in the afternoon window, pretty decent game total. Looks like it's going to be a pretty close game overall. Is this one that you're circling, Mike, or is this one that you're maybe fading a bit?
Oh man, I don't like this game, so I'll probably lose all my money tomorrow. I get it. Both offenses are, pretty good. I don't know, man. It's just one of these spots where I feel like the pricing's nice. Like everything just looks so good in this game, and it's just like, man, like I've seen this story play out before. Obviously, Heineke's 5,600. Both should be popular. I mean, you're going to have Renfro at 5,800. I mean, Gibson's 5,700. Like, these guys are just so easy to make fit in game stack wise, one-off wise. I mean, it's just it makes a lot of sense. I'm just not in love with this game as much as other people are. So I'm not saying I'm not playing anybody from this game because I'm, some of the guys that we mentioned, I'll definitely have some, and I'll definitely have a few stacks, but I'm not. I want to be underweight. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just don't feel good about this game. So, I don't know. I feel like this game's going to draw a lot of ownership. So, McLaurin at 7,400. I mean, that's a decent price tag, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that this game is going to garner a ton of ownership, and maybe it's just PTSD, but a few weeks back, I was looking, circling, highlighting, underlying, all fired up for the Giants and the Raiders, and I think it ended at like 17-13 or something like that. So, these kind of two middle of the pack teams that are facing off can easily go either way. It can be a shootout and you can put up a ton of points and stay close that way, or it can be a really ugly, kind of sloppy game. I think that Washington is getting a bit more credit than it's due, coming off of a win that probably should have been a loss to the Seahawks. Same thing with the Raiders, right? Apart from some ridiculous penalties, I don't think they're coming away with the dub on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. And now, we're seeing them get a ton of credit in terms of how this game is laid out. I'll probably be on some one-off pieces just because in general, like, all of these guys are kind of underpriced, right? I also don't want to fire up Carr and or Heineke stacks. But we do have a couple of questions. Carl, keeping it with us here, wants to know about Kenyon Drake sitting at $4,400. Is he a sleeper that maybe we can find a place for in our builds?
If we get a setback with Josh Jacobs and he's out, then definitely. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm not. Look, the one guy that I'm gonna play in this, and I don't really want to, but everyone's going to, and I don't want to miss the train is our boy at tight end here, Foster Monroe. So 2,700. So I don't know if I'm looking to really get to Drake at 4,400. For me, I guess, Jacobs, he's just, he's been playing pretty well recently. I mean, obviously he's playing team last game, so 22 carries. So yeah, I mean, if he's out, then obviously Drake becomes someone that I'd look at, obviously, for that price tag. I just said the same thing about Sony Michel, so be a fool not to at least look at it. But it kind of looks like he's going to be playing here. Jacobs is, so not really a Drake fan. I'm a real life Drake fan, but not a Kenyon Drake fan.
66666.
So, bro. And yeah, I think for the most part, I'm gonna go away from this game, and I just hope that it goes under. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's spots that I think like you just flatly need to get to. There's a lot of really good cash game plays in here, right? I like I like Renfro a ton in cash games. I like Antonio Gibson a ton in cash games. You mentioned Foster Monroe. Like, I mean, he's basically free, right? Carl, to your question about Drake, like, you are getting incredibly different, right? And the thing for me is, like, what's the game script where Drake is going to pay off? It's like either one of his 7 touches or so he ends up breaking, or we see the Raiders down big. And I don't think that either of those are particularly likely, right? So, if you catch a wild hair, you want to throw a dart, certainly take agency over your build, but he's a play that Mike and I are going to be off of for tomorrow's slate. You mentioned Monroe, excuse me. Taking a look at the tight end position specifically, I think Logan Thomas is a fantastic play, and I think he's largely going to be overlooked, right? He came in, he was on a pitch count in his first game out. He saw 6 targets, hauled in 3 of them for 31 yards. Apart from a super odd overturn, he actually hauled in 4 of them for about 44 yards and a touchdown. But that obviously got called back upon review. So you think about kind of the state of tight end. Everyone's going to be down on Foster. Everyone's going to be up on a couple of the pay up options, right? Andrews, Kittle, Gronkowski. I mean, Logan Thomas is very much so a focal point of this passing offense and might come in at like 4 or 5% owned. Am I reading that one wrong, or are you right there with me?
No, I'm right there with you, man. I actually like him a lot this week, which is probably a terrifying thing. But the tight ends in this offense has been featured, pretty well over the course of the year, no matter who's been slotted in there. So, yeah, it's something to I think most people are going to lock in Monroe or go up to the top guys. So I think if you can get him at low ownership, definitely a piece that I'm looking to get to. And then while I am stacking, I do like the idea of Heineke paired with him. McKissick's the short to intermediate parts. So if you can get close to double-digit targets, I think he's definitely an interesting play. If he punches one in, just like we say, anybody under 4K or under, all they need is a touchdown to really kind of make your day. So definitely not mad at it.
Yeah, for sure. And Scott's chiming in here. He's actually looking at this one as a pretty sneaky good one for DFS purposes. I think the thing for us is we're kind of saying the same thing in two different ways. Mike, it sounds like you're a little bit more bearish on this game than I am on the whole. But the thing that's keeping me off of this one is I don't really want Heineke or Carr to build my stacks around. So I'll have, to your point, I'll have plenty of Hunter Renfrow. I'll have Logan Thomas. I'll have Foster down there at $2,700. I'll have some Gibson. But it's really going to be more one-off pieces because these guys do present such solid point per dollar production that I want to get some of that salary relief and not sacrifice the scoring so that I can go attack the Rams game or attack the Chargers game, right? So that's, generally how I think we're thinking about this game. Mike, any other points on this one before we carry on?
No, I think we hit it. Don't mind stacking this game at all, but it's just not for me this week. And, I'm going to take my chances. Sometimes you just have to, do something different. And this is the game that I think is actually going to garner a little more ownership than what we probably. For me, that makes me want to go last week when there's not really those smash spots those smash games that are out there.
Yeah, totally agree with that pricing point. It's going to be popular, and for good reason, right? I think it's more about just kind of picking your spots and mitigating your exposure to all of that chalk that'll be in this game. And with that, we will carry forward here in the sales rack. Our next game features the Minnesota Vikings, keeping it in the division, heading to Detroit to face off against the Lions. This one is sitting at a 46.5 point total. It is a 1:00 game. We have the Vikings sitting at 7.5 point favorites. They opened at -4, so the line has gone up and in their favor. That leaves them with a 27 point implied total, and the Lions all the way down at 19.5. So again, Mike, we are looking at another game with a huge favorite. Obviously, the storyline for this one is injury to the running back position. Tell the people how it impacts your builds in week number 13.
Yeah, I think you got to go to Madison, right? I mean, last time these two teams played, he went for 30 fantasy points. So I don't know why we just don't go back to the well. That game was 19-17, and he still put up 30 fantasy points. So, yeah, he's definitely someone that I'm looking to to get some exposure to. He's going to be tag is super popular, but people are going to see the matchup here and want to run to that. So I do like the Cousins side of it with Jefferson as a stacking partner here. I think that's not going to be super popular and something that I want to get some exposure to. With Swift out, definitely interesting with our guy Jamal Williams getting the bulk of the carries here. I think he's going to be someone that's popular this week too. Options in this game, and we haven't been getting too many Detroit games, but I think this is one that's definitely interesting. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, this game in particular is an exercise in leverage, right? Alexander Mattison has gotten over 30 touches in the 2 games that he's filled in for Dow Cook. He's going to be one of the more popular options out there. He's priced all the way up. He's $7,600, right? So I don't think he's going to be the highest owned guy on the slate. I actually think Jamal Williams might flirt with that. But anytime that there's that much ownership concentrated onto a player or two, like that's where we want to look for leverage, right? So I love your idea of spinning off of the Madison leverage and getting into some Kirk and JJ, or even some Kirk and Thielen stacks. Like that combination of players is going to be super unique in the builds. I mean, it's going to hurt getting, away from Madison or potentially fading him. And actually, Scott is jumping in here, and he wants to know about your thoughts on just diving right into that chalk and firing up both Jamal Williams and Alexander Mattison. Is that something that you think is worthwhile on this slate?
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be popular. So I don't know, man. Kind of like what you were saying is that the Cousins Jefferson side, along with like someone like a Hawkinson, is completely unique. And I think a way to garner leverage in large field tournaments now in games. I mean, obviously you're just locking in those backs in a ton of lineups, but yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's always nerve wracking clicking Kirk Cousins' name and Jefferson's price tag. Yeah, that stack is not going to be popular at all, which makes me like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm completely with you, and that's really where the context matters, right? In GPP, again, it's all about leverage. If you're talking about a cash game, I'm probably lock buttoning both Williams and Madison. Like the value there is just tremendous. I'm talking about kind of small to midfields. I think it's really just a matter of trying to get exposure to at least one of the two of them. If you're building multiple lineups, maybe kind of rotating your exposure across those two. But ultimately, I think everyone on the slate is going to have pieces from this game. So taking a look at the type of game that you're playing in is ultimately what's going to inform which of these players you look to fire up. Before we switch gears on to our next game, I want to know your thoughts, Mike, on not only the player, Josh Reynolds, but the type of person that it takes to make a Josh Reynolds call heading in to Thanksgiving as our deep dart of the week. Tell me about Josh Reynolds. Is he going to run it back?
I don't know how you didn't win the $1 million.
It was Swift.
So that's a bet. I guess we're still victory lapping. Thanks. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, or 10 days after Thanksgiving. I mean his price
when you only get dubs like once a month.
3,400, man. I mean, he's gonna. Yeah, I mean, 5 to 6. 7. I expect 5 to 7 targets. Puts one in, and man, that's definitely an interesting way to run it back. Like a Cousins, Cousins Jefferson stack and run it back that way. Or even if you're playing back with him, is going to be unique. So that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, to your point, I mean that's exactly where I was going. I think if you're firing up a Cousins anybody stack, you're going to be unique enough to where you probably shouldn't be considering Josh Reynolds. But if you're gonna eat the chalk on Madison, Reynolds is a great way to get a run back and to get some leverage on the field. And my guy Scott, he gets it. Jared Goff only has eyes for Reynolds in this receiving core. Those two were boys in LA. The GM in Detroit was the GM of that Rams team that drafted him. They made him a priority. I do think he still has a role. They're going to be down. He should be the primary receiving option in terms of wide receivers. So certainly an interesting way to get a little run back.
Our boy Swift is out, so maybe Hawkins just gets like 19 targets because it seems like Goff doesn't know how to look anywhere else.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Jamal Williams can certainly do plenty out of that backfield as well, right? So the reason why I was stumbling over my words is because I think Reynolds will lead wide receivers in targets, but probably won't be the leading receiver on the day for the Lions.
No, I definitely like it. Let's keep it going. Thanksgiving Day Reynolds, man.
Yeah, that's my dude. And we will also keep it going on the pawn shop. This is actually our last stop here in the sales rack, last chance to find a little diamond in the rough. And we are heading back to the afternoon window. We have the San Francisco 49ers heading to Seattle to face off against the Seahawks. This one sits at 45.5, which is exactly where it opened. We actually saw this one flip. Seattle opened as a home favorite at -1.5. Now it's gone all the way over a full 4.5 points to where San Francisco is the 3-point road favorite. Gives an implied total of 24.25 with the Seahawks at 21.25. So divisional matchup again, back in that hammer window, the last game on the main slate. Anything in particular that jumps off the page for you with this one, Mike?
Yeah, my boy Kittle. You're gonna be seeing my lineups roll out here with a lot of Kittle and Monroe in my flex, and that's just how we're rolling this week, baby. So I probably won't get to the pay line, but yeah, I definitely don't mind this game, and the pricing being kind of suspect in this game. I mean, I know Seahawks have been struggling. You got Lockett down to 6,500. Wilson's at 6,400. DK Metcalf's only 6,700. I do like this game. Mitchell's definitely in play, especially with this run defense for Seattle. Coming off the 30 piece, he's going to be popular. The three running back builds are going to be super popular this week, which is why I like the 2 tight ends. Chances are one of these mid-tier to, I guess you can call it 7,600 kind of higher mid-tier running backs. I mean, a couple of them are probably going to bust. If they all get there, then you're going to need 3 running backs this week. But, just a way to be different, like we always talk about here in GPP style. So,
yeah, for me, I think George Kittle is going to be the highest scoring tight end on the slate, and by a wide margin, right? I think he's going to outscore second place by 5 to 7 points pretty comfortably. And because he is all the way up at $5,900, he's essentially $100 less than Mark Andrews, the most expensive tight end on the board. I don't think we see him get much ownership at all, right? So I definitely like the idea of George Kittle getting rather having a lot of leverage relative to where he's going to finish in terms of optimal builds. Scott jumping right in and again firing off these cash game winners. Eli Mitchell is a fantastic play overall, but super strong in that cash format, right? We're looking at back-to-back weeks where he got over 27 touches. All of a sudden last week with the rest of the injuries in that backfield with Debo going down, suddenly Eli Mitchell can catch the ball, and the Seattle defense is the second most favorable matchup in terms of points allowed to running backs. They've allowed almost 33 DK points per game to the running back position. So I definitely think Eli is going to feast. I guess the question that I have for you, Mike, with the value that we have out there, with Maddison, with Williams, with potentially Sony Michel being out there, do you think Eli kind of slides off the radar a little bit, or do you think that he's going to be maybe the second or third most popular guy?
No, I think all these running backs are going to be popular. I think 3 running back build is going to be super popular this week. I know, against these run defenses, so I completely get it. But that's just not my strategy this week. I'm trying to be contrarian this week. So, yeah, I'll have exposure to these guys. I'm not saying I'm going to be super underweight on any of these guys. I'm going to play a few here or there, mix them up in some different types of game stacks. This one, I like a Mitchell with a Kittle. And, I'm going to take some shots at Russell Wilson here, some Tyler Lockett. No one's going to want to go to that. 6,400. It's like, man, this guy has, a massive ceiling. He hasn't shown it since, week 2 when he put up 26 fantasy points against Tennessee. Week 1, 27 fantasy points. You get a ceiling game from Russell Wilson at lower ownership. It's like, man, you're cooking. So they're at home. I know they don't have much to play for. He's got issues with Metcalf. There's all the things that are going to just drive down this ownership. And if we can just go, and I mean, that's a potential slate breaker.
I mean, I think that's the essential question, right? There is plenty of reporting, plenty of rumor milling about what's going on with DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson. And of the two, kind of like we were talking about with Trevor Lawrence a few games back, right? Like, if you're firing up Russ, right? Like you've already made that decision. It feels like DK has probably got a bit more leverage than Lockett. Am I reading that wrong, or are you just going to kind of alternate between the two?
Yeah, no, Metcalf. Do you think people are stacking Wilson Metcalf? I don't think that's a thing. But so yeah, I do like that. I like Lockett just in the slot. And the thing is with the Wilson, it's like you get a 1 rushing touchdown and 30 or 40 yards, and he throws for 2 touchdowns. I mean, you're climbing towards that 20 price point, and that's going to open up the entire slate, especially if you run it back with Kittle, Mitchell. I mean, you just have money for days to go out and get Kupp and other people.
And I mean, that's the thing, right? Like if you're going down that path, the run backs are juicy, right? You got Ayuk at $5,600. You got Kittle at $5,900. You got Eli Mitchell underpriced, right? Yeah, Lance Romance, who's no longer a thing in this offense. Like if you're going down that path, you can get into the San Francisco side and have a ton of exposure to this game and not break the bank, right? So, for these large fields, for these milli makers, for these mini maxes, I think it's worth throwing a few darts on Russ. Joe's chiming in saying that he loves Lockett this week. Again, a lot to love. I think either of these pass catchers in Seattle make for a fine stack with Russell Wilson. I think it's just a matter of where you get more leverage. I think DK kind of gets the edge there. Mike, any other spots you want to talk about here? Want to fire up a little Juwan Johnson take? Maybe get a little deep into the receiver room in San Francisco, or is it pretty much a straight up kind of game?
I'm not giving a Juwan Johnson take tonight.
Come on. So we will keep it moving. That is actually the end of our spin through the sales racks. So now we head down and we dumpster dive. We take a look at the bargain bin. This is where generally the broken and undesirable crap lives in the pawn shop, but you got to stop through, see if you can find that diamond in the rough, because in these games, there are a few things that we can potentially pick out and slide right into our lineup. And the first of those games, we head back to the 1 o'clock window with another divisional matchup, as we have the Indianapolis Colts heading to Houston to face off against the Texans. For some reason, this one opened at a 49-point game total. It's come all the way down to 44.5. We look at the Colts with a 10-point favorite, or as a 10-point favorite, still getting about 81% of the money. So maybe that line continues to move as we head into tomorrow morning. That gives them a 27.25 implied total, and the Texans all the way down at 17.25, yet again tied for one of the lowest spots on the board. So anything in particular that stands out about this game? Obviously, we are all in love with JT, and this is a juicy matchup for him. Is it basically JT and Colts D, or anything else that you're looking at for this one?
Oh, man. Yeah, JT and Colts D does look nice, right? So many running backs. Like, why do you want to spend 9,200 there? Why not play a Mitchell and a Madison with Carson? Wentz my. No, I don't know, man. It's not my favorite game here. I mean, we got our Houston Texans Slayer is on the board here with T.Y. Hilton, so kind of an interesting play since he always crushes them. But yeah, I think overall, I'm not going to be too crazy with this game. I'm going to have maybe some one-off every now and then. I'll definitely game stack this thing in a large field to see what could happen. But if I'm stacking on Wentz and Pittman, trying to find something on the other side that kind of makes sense. I don't mind Tyrod Taylor either. Obviously, 5,300 should be somewhat popular. It's really tough to pair him with somebody. I mean, we got the Cooks questionable tag. So I don't know what we're doing with that. Obviously, we'll kind of just play it by ear here. But I do like the Colts side on this. So, and I definitely don't mind the defense here for the Colts. 3,700 and then over machine. So 2,400 for the Texans D. I don't mind that at all. I mean, that's almost free.
Yeah. I think this one plays pretty straight up. I guess where I want to spend a bit more time is on something that you actually teed up perfectly, right? With all of the value on this slate, with so many guys that are in absolutely fantastic spots that are significantly less expensive. I mean, what do you think ownership looks like on Jonathan Taylor tomorrow? You think it's lower than it should be?
Oh yeah, it's going to be way lower than it should be. There's no one's going to want to fire up Taylor at 9,200 this week. I mean, there's just no way. I don't know.
There is no way.
There's not.
Does that maybe? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, just in general, I'm never feeling great about firing up a 9K player from the running back position, right? Maybe kind of peak 2019 Christian McCaffrey, but I don't think Jonathan Taylor's quite up to that level yet. But looking at the leverage, like everything is there for him to have pretty close to a ceiling game, right? I guess when your ceiling game is 56 points against Buffalo, that's probably off the board. But a normal running back ceiling game, and he might come in, a good couple points below 10% ownership, right? So this is something that I'm going to be sweating over all morning, looking at some Tyrod Cooks run backs or some Tyrod Brevin run backs and seeing if I can save a few bucks and tap into an underutilized JT.
Yeah, I mean, to be different this week, I think Taylor's a way to get access to that difference. I think if you're playing Taylor in large field, I don't know that you want to fade. I don't know if you want to fade a value plays at running back, one of the three that you're playing. So I don't know. That's going to be kind of tough to fade. Every running back that we've been talking about, because most likely. Two of those guys are going to hit, and then you want Taylor with them if he hits. So, yeah, I mean, it's a way to be unique because not a lot of people are going to build a 3 running back with Taylor. So, definitely an interesting play.
Yeah, I think that's why it jumps off the board for me. Anything else for this divisional tilt that you want to highlight?
No, I think we can move on.
And we will do just that. 3 straight divisional matchups we're firing off. We are now looking at the Baltimore Ravens heading to Pittsburgh for a 425 game, despite these being East Coast teams. Looking at a 44.5 implied total. The Ravens, the number 1 seed in the AFC, are a 4.5 point favorite. It gives them a 24.5 point implied total. And the Steelers down at an even 20. So a lot of big name players in this one, but not exactly the most appealing game on the board. Can you maybe walk us through why that's the case, Mike?
It's just not appealing. I don't know, man. This is always a tough battle between these two teams. look at them aren't great. I'm probably gonna have some one-off exposure. Deontay Johnson is so heavily involved in this offense, like it's out of control at this point. Like, Noodle Arm just looks to him. Seems like double digits, almost 14, 13, 13. I mean, it's incredible how many targets this guy's getting. So he's probably going to make a lot of my lineups. As we get closer to the loss, 800, it's not bad. I mean, he puts a touchdown on the board. It's like bam. I mean, you're looking at mid-20s with his target share. So I don't know, man. This game's not too exciting for me. I don't even know if I like that much else. I mean, Lamar, cash game play. I don't like this game too much. What about you?
Yeah, there's a couple of points to mention before I jump in. Fell a little behind here in the chat. Looks like Carl is riding along with us, talking about firing up JT under-owned against this terrible defense. And again, right there with you, like if you can get a one-off on JT, you can find a way to make the salary work. Definitely think it leaves you leveraged. And we got someone else checking in with a quick happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to you. Thanks for spending a little bit of it with us at the pawn shop. Mike, jumping back to this Pittsburgh and Baltimore game, I guess the things of note for me are really twofold. The first is you mentioned firing up a naked Lamar Jackson, again, always in play in terms of your cash game builds. The player that I want to talk about is Rashad Bateman. It felt like for a few weeks there, every single week, he was the darling of DFS Twitter, right? The fantasy Twitter, looked at Rashad Bateman the same way that you look at Van Jefferson. Are we done with this Rashad Bateman thing now, or do you think that maybe this is a game where he gets it going?
I never rostered Rashad Bateman during all that, so
never.
There's nothing for me to there's nothing for me to really do with that. I'm just gonna keep doing what I've been doing, which is not play him.
Yeah.
Brown's interesting at 6,500. He's got upside, so he's definitely someone I'd be looking to get exposure to. But other than that, man, I guess Claypool. It's just tough to play Pittsburgh. They're just so ugly.
So the guy that I do want to talk about a little bit, and this is really more of an ownership consideration, is Pat Airfryermuth, right? We look at this guy. He caught his first touchdown a few weeks back and has literally been the focal point of this offense in the red zone. He's sitting at $4,200. And literally no one is going to click that button, right? I mean, there's a good argument to do it, but $200 less, you can get to Logan Thomas, right? You can go all the way down and tap into our guy Foster on the other side of that Washington game. Or people are going to be looking to go up to Kittle, to Mandrews, to Gronk again. Do you think there's maybe something to be said for a one-off dart on Freiermuth if you are doing that 2 tight end build that you mentioned a minute ago?
Yeah, I think if you get there, I'm not mad at it because he's not going to be pop. Seeing what he does have ceiling, 5x ceiling. So yeah, I'm not mad at it. I'm probably not going to go there this week. Most of my shares are going to be to 2 top receivers in the game, which are Brown and I like Deontay Johnson a lot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Carl jumping in on the Bateman chatter. He's actually Team Bateman here, and I mean you're right. He's certainly due. Whether or not that actually plays out this week is ultimately what's in question. But the way that this Ravens offense is set up, not really trying to find exposure to tertiary pieces. But to your point, Carl, when this one hits, come on back. We'll celebrate. We'll victory lap with you here in the chat on the Pawn Shop in week 14. Any other pieces you want to talk about in this game, Mike?
No, I think we can move on.
We will move on. And we will move on to the 1 o'clock window with the Philadelphia Eagles heading to face off against the New York Jets. We're all the way down at a 43.5 point total. This one has been plummeting based on some recent news. We saw the Eagles, or currently have the Eagles sitting as a 5.5 point favorite. That gives them an implied total of 24.5, with the Jets down at 19 flat. According to one report earlier tonight, Jalen Hurts was ruled out, and then like 45 minutes later, the reporting said despite him being ruled out, they want to see how he does in pregame warmups, so they might unrule him out. So obviously, a bit of uncertainty around this one. I think we're better off just assuming Hurts doesn't play. Is that how you look at this one? And if so, any pieces you want from this game?
We've reached this point of the night, haven't we? For Gardner Minshew.
Say it.
4K. Okay, right? The ownership going to be
flat 4K, min price. High. I mean, he can't get into a better spot. I think the thing to consider is, again, kind of talking about format, right? Like, if you're talking about a GPP, like, yes, you can get value from Gardner Minshew. Even if he's under-owned, you can get value from Gardner Minshew. But, like, does he have the upside to actually under-owned is probably, like, I don't know, 5%, right? Quarterbacks don't draw a ton of ownership as it is. So
you don't think he's going to draw like 30% ownership?
No, in cash game, he'll be crazy. He'll be crazy popular, right? You got to get to 9.5, 10 points in cash. He'll easily be the chalkiest play at the quarterback position in a cash setting. But I mean, in GPP, people are looking for upside, right? You think about Jordan Love starting a few weeks back when he was 4,500. I think he landed at like 7% in large field, something like that.
People have this obsession with Minshew.
People do love some Gardner Minshew. We were on Rum Boys After Dark last night, and we fired up a commercial for Monkey Knife Fight, and it had Gardner Minshew on there. And I was like, why is there a backup quarterback on here doing a spot with Stephon Diggs and the tippy top of the elite players in the league? But there he was, and
Fournette
Joe was sitting there rooting him on. Minshew. Yeah, I mean, I think he starts. For me, the player that I think is most interesting here is someone who is going to go way under-owned, and that's Miles Sanders, all the way down at $5,200. Jordan Howard's ruled out. Boston Scott is looking on the wrong side of questionable. I don't think anyone is going to be on Miles Sanders for a game against the Jets that is giving up easily the most points to opposing running backs. They're giving up nearly 40 DraftKings points per game. Is Miles Sanders like the leverage play of the week at the running back position?
Man, how many times are we going to talk about Miles Sanders, bro? Like, was it, the Giants last week? Yeah. Come on, the guy scores 7.4 fantasy points. They score 7 points. They score 40 points the week before against them. They score 20. It doesn't matter what range of outcomes of scoring that they do. This man struggles to get to 10 fantasy points. So, yes, he is definitely a leverage play this week, and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah. I think the thing that's not getting as much attention as it should is Miles Sanders essentially didn't play the second half of that game with injury, right? So he racked up his 10 touches in the first half. So, you extrapolate that over the course of a full game against easily the worst run defense in the league. Like, the path for him to get to 13, 15 points, I feel like is pretty clear, right? Especially if Boston Scott's rolled out.
Except when Boston Scott gets the 2-yard shotgun draw play.
Yeah, right. When they start running the Air Force Academy offense, so they don't have to trot Gardner Minshew out.
Oh,
Little triple option.
Bad.
Speaking of bad, ready to move on to our next game.
All these other running backs in his price tag. Yeah, let's move on.
So we will we'll keep trudging along here. We stay in the 1 o'clock window. We have the Arizona Cardinals heading up to Chicago to face off against the Bears at 1 o'clock. This one is carrying a 42.5 total. It's actually come down a pretty good bit since opening around 45.5. The Cardinals are currently sitting at 7.5-point favorites, even with some uncertainty about the availability of Kyler Murray. That gives them an even 25-point implied total, with the Bears at 17.5. So I mentioned Kyler Murray's availability is a bit murky. You can lump DeAndre Hopkins into that category. Any pieces that you are looking at in this game in the 1 o'clock block?
Not really, man. Like, it's gonna be ugly. Yeah. There's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, it sounds like a $5,600 David Montgomery is going to draw a lot of ownership this week, and I think that's probably bad chalk. Fair enough in a cash game, but ultimately there are so many better options for just a few dollars more, or in some cases a few dollars less, right? You see Williams, you see Sanders floating around that price tag. Looking at the running back side on the other side of the ball, I do think James Conner is kind of interesting. I don't think that anyone is going to be looking at him, kind of sandwiched between Eli Mitchell and Antonio Gibson and some of the other value plays. You think there's something to be said for James Conner in what is potentially his last start before Edmonds returns as a good dart to throw in Week 13?
I mean, that price point is just kind of tough. There's so many other guys. Yeah, man, like I'm probably just full fading this game outside of maybe the defenses, and I kind of like both, especially with the weather.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think Mooney's somewhat interesting, especially in a small or single entry field, maybe a cash game. His price tag is low enough to where you should have a pretty good look at getting to value. But overall, without Kyler in this game, with Andy Dalton back under center, not really going to be the most potent of scoring settings. So that usually has the makings of a fade. And it sounds like Mike and I are thinking about that in the same way. So we will head to our last game here at the Pawn Shop. We have the New York Football Giants heading down the South Beach, facing off against the Dolphins at 1 o'clock. We are all the way down at a 39.5 implied total. The Dolphins are sitting at 6.5-point home favorites. That gives them a 23-point implied total. And the Giants have the lowest number on the board at 16.5. Despite that, I think there's actually a couple of things to look at here, Mike. Any players that are worth mentioning to you?
Man, that's an ugly total. But yeah, I mean, Waddle, 6,400. He's definitely in play. I mean, the guy the ball just gets thrown to him so often in this offense that you almost. Man, I don't game ugly, but yeah, he's definitely my favorite player in this game environment. I don't know how crazy I'm going to go. I'll have a little bit, nothing too crazy. If he fits, he fits. I'm not going to go out of my way to try to put him in there. But with Daniel Jones out, man, I do like Miami's defense. So
Miami's defense is a great play. The player that I want to talk about is going to be heavily owned and is maybe the best punt play on the board, and that is a returning Devontae Parker, $3,900. He has had no game that he has played with less than 7 targets. He's gone 7-9, 7-9, and 11. He is a part of this offense when he is in rather suited up and available. And at $3,900, it's not going to take much for him to bring a positive return. So I'll have a good bit of Devontae Parker as I'm trying to save a little bit of money and pay up elsewhere. Is that the wrong move, Mike? Are you going to come along with me?
Yeah, I'll have some shares of Parker, but he's going to be popular. And man, since he's been out since week 8, I just feel like Waddle is just the guy there. You got Gesicki there too. The game environment's not great. The Giants' defense has actually been kind of decent, surprisingly. So, yeah, I get it. I'm going to have shares, but I'm not going over lower than the field, a little more contrarian than most.
Yeah, I can see it. I'm not really here for really any concern about Flash Gesicki, right? Like, his little window of time seems to have come and gone. I do think that Parker's return eats into Waddle a little bit, but more so eats into kind of that second option role that Gesicki and or one of the backs out of the backfield was playing. So definitely like finding a way to get to Parker. Carl chimed in, said that he loves it. We've got Joe agreeing as well. So to your point, going to be a popular option here on the slate, but $3,900 is just so much value that I think I'm actually going to be right around the field in terms of ownership on Parker.
If he gets 13 fantasy points, he's what do you like? Is for a large field, that's definitely not going to get it done.
No, I mean, especially not if you're looking at. I mean, I've got him around like 16, 17% ownership, right? So I mean, he's going to have to really hit the nuts there in large field. But in a smaller field, in a single entry, definitely a good spot. Cash game, obviously a lock.
Cash game
definitely a lot
for sure.
to like with Parker, and that will conclude our trip around the sun in week number 13. Mike, any other thoughts on the slate overall, or anything that you want to tell the people as we head out?
No, I think this week, and I've been saying it the entire show. Got to find ways to be different. There's going to be some chalky running backs. There's going to be plays that people go to this week that I think, I'm going to be on some. I'm not going to be on all of it. I don't want to be chalky this week. So, just find some correlations that you like that are maybe a little unique. And I think that's going to be the way you kind of set yourself apart this week. So, those are just my thoughts on the slate.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Before we close out, want to send a quick shout out to all of you riding along with us, Carl, Joe, Scott, everyone that's been chiming up in the chat. It's been a fun night tonight hearing what you guys are thinking as we go through the slate and as we close this out. Mike, you want to tell everyone who's watching where they can find you out in the world?
Yeah, so I'm riding in the streets with you on Twitter at MCHolland34. I am doing some writing for college basketball and NBA for drroto.com. I'm also a contributor on the Bacon and Egg Show, which is basically an all Texas, University of Texas sports show. So you can catch me there, give me my opinions on the terrible football team we have right now, and the great basketball team, hopefully, that's going to take it down this year. So that's where you can find me. So enjoyed it this week, and I'm looking forward to being different, and hopefully I'm not eating my words this week.
Gang. Well, Carl's chiming in one more time as we close out. Appreciate you riding with us from end to end here, Carl. And definitely
thanks, Carl.
Looking forward to you shooting us some green screens as we wrap up the slate tomorrow. In terms of myself, you can find me again on those Twitter streets at Fantasy Nav. I'm always the worst at doing this. I am a contributor for Dr. Roto as well. I also contribute and do some podcasting here on the Going for Two network. And shout out to my dude, Mike. He talks about doing some college basketball DFS. He is not joking. I've been riding along with this guy for a week. I don't know shit about college basketball, and I'm hitting green screens every single day. So get over there, MC Holland 34. He's dropping picks every single day. He's responding to tweets. He's helping you build those lineups. there's a ton of money to be had in those college streets. So shout out to my dude Mike, MC Holland 34. Find him on Twitter, hit that follow button, hit some green screens. And with that, we will close up shop at the pawn shop, and we will see you in week 14.